Will outsourcing the development of your no-code app be faster than building your app yourself? Now, this might seem like a really obvious question, but you might be surprised. See, we've personally helped entrepreneurs build their apps with us building their apps for them. And we've helped entrepreneurs build their apps themselves. And so we have done a ton of data and research on what works the best and also which path is the fastest. And if you're thinking about outsourcing versus building your app yourself because maybe you're on a strict deadline or you want to get your app launched as quickly as possible, this video is going to be really helpful for you in making the right decision for your app. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, first, if you're new around here, my name is Kristen, and I'm the co-founder of Coaching No Code Apps, where we help business owners and industry experts build custom apps to either start their app-based businesses or grow their existing businesses all without coding and with no technical background required. So a lot of people worry that building their apps themselves is going to take a lot longer. Now, it does come with a lot of benefits, and so it can be hard to make the decision on which path to take, right? So if you're building your app yourself, it can take a lot longer than if you were to outsource, right? This is obvious, right? No question. You may have already been trying to build your app for months and you're finally at the point where you're thinking, okay, I'm just going to give up and have someone else build it. And that might be because you are taking the DIY path, the do-it-yourself path, okay? Where you're not getting customized help building your app. If you're going down that path, then your development is definitely going to take longer. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. It really depends on your own priorities and goals. But the DIY route it can mean a few different things. It can mean you are really just tinkering and figuring things out entirely on your own. Maybe you are consulting forums or threads or groups, message boards. Maybe you are using tutorials. Maybe some of the tutorials that we ourselves have on our YouTube channel. Maybe you're even enrolled in courses or things like boot camps, right? All of these are DIY approaches, and they're DIY because they give you general information. Now, it can be really good information, but it's all going to be generalized where it's up to you ultimately to take that information and that knowledge and implement it correctly for your own use cases. So none of this is personalized to your specific app, your specific needs, goals, and all of that. It's generalized. Okay, so when you're taking that path, development is just naturally going to take a lot longer. And again, not necessarily a bad thing. If you don't mind tinkering with your app for months or maybe even years, if you don't mind that, that's okay. And some people do like to do that. They're not on any sort of deadline. They don't have anything pushing them to launch faster. And we do often see people launching their apps when they're taking the DIY approach, usually at around a year or a little bit more. Because again, it just takes trial and error to get everything right for your own use case. So you can kind of think of this as like, say you set a New Year's resolution to get healthier, lose some weight, live a more active lifestyle, go to the gym and all of that. So imagine yourself having that goal, but never having exercised before in your life, never having read a nutrition label before in your life, and trying to figure out which exercise plan to use, how to use all the equipment at the gym, how to set all the machines up properly for you, how to create your own meal plan, all of that, right? You can definitely do it. It's just going to take longer as opposed to getting some help and having someone else make the decisions or guide you on the decisions, right? It's the same type of thing. So that DIY path is always going to take a lot longer. Outsourcing is always going to be a lot faster. But how does this compare to a more personalized approach, because there is a happy medium. And that's really what I want you to understand today, is it doesn't have to be outsourcing or doing it all yourself, or doing it with, a course or a boot camp or something like that. It doesn't have to be one of those two paths. For example, we take entrepreneurs through a process where they go from their idea stage with their app to being able to bring on those initial test users, and they follow a 12-week process. They're the ones building their apps, right? So we're putting them in the driver's seat so that they have control, but we're acting as their guides and their mentors along the way. So it's not outsourcing, it's not total DIY, right? This is kind of like a happy medium approach. And this is what I want to get you thinking about. Not even just what our program specifically, or how we work with entrepreneurs specifically, but just the fact that there is another way. So you're not so constrained as you move forward with your app. So now that we have this kind of third approach that we're looking at, now we have to look at what's faster. Is outsourcing going to be faster, or is taking a happy medium sort of merged approach going to be faster? Now, some entrepreneurs still think that outsourcing is going to be faster. Maybe they think they can get their app up and running in 1 month, or maybe 2 months. That's usually what I see, a month or 2 months. But I really encourage you to dig a little deeper. And that's what we're going to do now. We're going to break this down together, because you have to really look at what outsourcing requires, all the different little aspects involved in outsourcing, to help you truly understand if it's going to be faster for you. And I want to say, or I want to preface this with the fact that I'm not trying to tell you that outsourcing is bad. Definitely not. Outsourcing can be a great solution in the right situation, right? If it meets your needs and your goals, then that is a solution and a path that you can take, and that's fine. This is really just if you are trying to decide, can I build my app myself? Because I know there are a lot of benefits, but is it going to take too long, right? This is where we're really digging into this. So let's look at all the different aspects that are involved with outsourcing when it comes to speed, right? So when you have that pressing deadline, when you want to launch fast, what's going to get you there? So when you're outsourcing, think about all the different things involved aside from just the time frame that you're quoted by a developer or by an agency. So first things first, you have to find the right developer or the right agency to build your app for you. Now, this is usually a lot easier said than done. It's like hiring anyone for anything. You have to find the right person. You have to find the person who gets you, who understands your vision, your idea, your wants, your needs. You have to find the person who offers exactly, what's going to get you the result that you're looking for. You need to find someone you trust. You need to find someone who can, work on the same schedule. You have to find the right person, and it takes time. That can honestly be one of the longest parts of this process alone. And so if you are going off of some, maybe you've read that an app can be built in a month or 2 months or something like that, make sure you're factoring in this kind of like this preloading time where you actually have to make sure you've locked down the right person first. It can take longer than you might think. And then you have to vet this agency or this person. Make sure that they're going to be able to help you achieve that outcome that you're looking for. We live in an age where lots of things happen on the internet, which takes the faces away sometimes, right? When you're dealing with websites, you're going through contact forms and things like that, you don't always have a face-to-face approach, or someone who you can talk to and see really if they're going to be able to help you achieve what you want. So you have to find ways to vet them, and again, this can take a while depending on what matters to you. Do you need to look at past work, look at reviews, testimonials, all of these things, right? Make sure that you're going to, after you've spent all this time finding this person, make sure you're going to mesh with them so that you can move forward with a lot more cohesion with your app. Okay, now after you've done that, also think about the time it takes to take your idea out of your head and convey it to another person. Now, to put this into perspective, let me ask you this. How long has it taken you so far to extract your idea from your head and even get it down onto paper, or get it down onto a Word doc, or whatever it is that you're using to organize? How long has it taken you to do that? Now imagine trying to take this big, massive idea out of your head and put it into someone else's. That is really hard. It's a hard thing to do, not just because they won't understand it, but because you're the one with the knowledge of your industry, of your market. You're the one with the knowledge of the processes and all of these things. You're coming into this not just with some random app idea that you picked up off the street. You're coming into this with a background, knowledge, and experience that is being funneled into this app idea. And it can be hard to pull that out of your head and convey that to someone else alongside your app idea. But it's important when you are bringing this app idea to life that you're actually able to convey that vision. So it does take some time. So just remember, it's not just you're not just looking at the amount of time it takes for the development. You have to look at everything that happens before that, but you also have to look at everything that happens after that. Once you have the app built, when the agency or the developer, they have mostly finished it up, you have to go through rounds of revisions, because naturally, when you have your idea and you're giving it to someone else, when they give it back, it's not going to look exactly like you want. This isn't the fault of a developer or an agency. This is just, again, sort of highlighting that process. It's not 100% seamless. You can't put the developer inside your own head. And so you have to anticipate it taking some time before the development and then taking time after the development, just to iron things out, to go through rounds of revisions and make sure that what you have in return is actually what you were looking for. It's actually the thing that's been living in your head for all this time up until now. Okay. And after that, okay, so you've gone through the process of getting the developer, you've had them create the app, you've done the refining and all of that. There's going to be a testing period. The testing period is when all the bugs get worked out. Now, it doesn't matter how good your developer or the agency is that you're working with, there will always be bugs. It's inevitable. This is just a part of development and something to anticipate. And just know that once you have the app back, you're going to have to continue to go through rounds of fixes. Usually this happens when you start bringing your users on board, because what happens is users come on board and they start doing things that the developers couldn't really anticipate ahead of time, because sometimes you just can't anticipate these things until people are going through the processes. That will bring up bugs. And so then while you're onboarding these users and while you're going through your beta testing and all of that, you'll still continue to have to work with this developer, this agency, to iron out all the kinks and all the bugs and all of that. So again, it adds some time after the fact, after that initial development timeframe that you might be looking at. And of course, all of this involves you working on someone else's schedule, someone else's, time frame. An agency is going to have lots of clients. A developer is going to have other clients. That is just part of it. So I'm not saying all of this to scare you off, because again, there's a time and a situation for each of these different paths when you're building an app, and none of them are wrong. And one of them is going to be right depending on your own needs. But if you're looking at speed, if you're asking yourself, should I just outsource so that I can launch faster? You have to take all of those things into account, because you could be cutting yourself short. If you're really wanting to build the app yourself because you want to have the control and you want to avoid having to, go through some of the things that we talked about, conveying your app idea to someone else, relying on someone else. If you want to avoid all of that, but the speed is holding you back, take all of that into account. Make sure you're considering the before and the after alongside that development timeframe, how long you're actually quoted for an app to be built. Okay, it all adds up. It all adds up, and usually is a much lengthier process than you would initially think. Okay, now with all of that in mind, you can do things to compress that time frame when you're outsourcing. Okay, so if you have to outsource no matter what, if you just think, oh, I have to outsource, and now you're understanding that outsourcing is actually probably going to take a lot longer than you expected, and now you're asking yourself, okay, what can I do to speed it up? Two things you can do. All right, the first thing is you can compromise on the quality of your app. Okay, so now this can seem like you might be hearing me say that and thinking to yourself, why on earth would I do that? You don't always need to build a really high quality first version app in every single situation. Some people are just creating a really basic app just as kind of like a litmus test, right? It doesn't need to be scalable, doesn't need to be reliable. They just need something up and working in sort of in anticipation of replacing it very soon afterwards. Okay, if that's the case for you, then you can speed up that development timeframe by a lot, because you can compromise on the quality. Okay, because in that case, if you're okay lowering the quality of your app, then you can reduce the number of revision rounds that you have to go through. You can reduce the number of bug fixes that you have to go through. You can reduce just the overall quality of the app in general, which is going to shorten the development time frame as a whole. Okay, so if you want to shorten the time frame, you can compromise on the quality. Right? The second thing you can compromise on is the budget. If you want to shorten the time frame, you can spend more money. All right. If you're not constricted by a certain budget and you would rather launch way, way, way faster and pay way, way, way more, you can compromise on the budget. Okay, so if we're looking at time frame, we're looking at app quality, we're looking at budget. Those are three different factors to consider when you're building an app. You can only have two of those three. It's kind of the rule of thumb here. So if speed is your thing, that's your priority, and you have to launch really, really quickly, choose which one you're going to compromise on. Are you going to compromise on quality, or are you going to compromise on your budget and just spend more to go faster? Okay. So thinking through outsourcing, whether it's going to be faster than building on your own, those are the things that I want to make sure you have in mind as you move forward, so you can make the right decision, because it's not always as cut and dry as it might seem. And I want to make sure you have all the information you need. It often doesn't end up being faster than if you were to build the app yourself. Now, again, when you're looking at the total DIY route versus the outsourcing route, yes, outsourcing is still going to be faster. But if you're looking at still sitting in the driver's seat yourself, but having someone help you, like how I mentioned, we work with our clients. If you're considering going down a path like that, that can often be a lot faster than outsourcing once you take a step back and kind of look at the bigger picture here. And the reason is because, when you have someone who who's helping you step into the driver's seat. That means you don't have to spend the time conveying your vision to someone else, going through all these different rounds of revisions. You don't have to worry about really any of that, right? You're in control. You can build the app exactly how you want. And the good thing is, if you have the right person guiding you through this process, so you have a process, a path to follow, you have someone who you trust who's taking you through it, well, you are actually going to be able to move a lot faster with your app the farther along you go. Okay, so initially, if you haven't started building your app, or you haven't really you haven't had anyone to show you how to take the next steps or to show you what to do, it can seem like a really daunting thing to do on your own, and like it is going to take a long time, right? That year or more that we talked about when you're taking the DIY route. But when you do have that path, the plan, the process, the person guiding you, after you take some of those initial steps and you understand what you need to be doing, the next steps are going to start to be faster and faster and faster. And they're going to keep building on each other because you're going to be learning all of these different things as you go. You're going to be learning how to move more quickly. You're going to be learning how to take your app out of your head, bring it to life in front of you, and really get it up and running. You're going to learn how to make your own revisions, how to make your own fixes, right? So that you don't have to reach out to someone else for help if something does happen to go wrong. You don't have to work on someone else's schedule. So yes, there's a little bit higher or steeper of a curve when you're just starting out on this path versus outsourcing, but that comes way down a lot faster. Whereas when you're outsourcing, you never really come down on the other side because you're always reliant on someone else moving forward. But think about this. We had a client the other day, for example, who launched his app. And one of the really big goals that we have for all of our clients is to make sure that they are self-reliant so that they can move quickly, because speed is so important to so many of the types of entrepreneurs who we work with, people who want to get their apps out there, want to start building traction, building their user bases, right? Well, we like to make sure that they're not reliant on us or on anyone else as they move forward, because it helps you, like I said, you kind of build compound speed. So this client, he launched his app to his first wave of beta users, and something went wrong in the onboarding where a bug came up. Now picture this. You're launching your app for the first time. You're bringing on, your first group of, let's say you're bringing on 100 users, and something happens in the onboarding. Let's say you're doing this on Friday, and you can't reach your developer or the agency when this bug happens. And so now you have all these people, your very first round of users who you're trying to onboard, and you can't. That's an emergency situation. And that's the type of thing that can expand the time frame when you're outsourcing well beyond what you had initially anticipated. But when you're in the driver's seat, you can compress that back, or you can make sure that doesn't actually expand your time frame. So this client who I'm talking about, all he did was, instead of reaching out and begging his developer to help him over the weekend, he went in, he found the problem, he fixed it, and all was fine. All his users came on board, and he kept moving forward smoothly into his user testing. So when you're thinking about speed, when speed is important to you and you're not confident that you can build the app fast enough, make sure you're taking that step back, thinking about the big picture. What all is going to be involved in outsourcing, and how is that going to compound over time? What is going to be involved in building the app yourself? If you have a plan, a process, someone who's helping you take a catered approach, if you're following that path, then what's going to be involved there and how is that going to compound for you? Again, there's not a right or wrong answer, but there is a right answer depending on your situation and your priorities. I just want to make sure you have all the information so that you can make the right decision, because I don't want you to outsource your app or even go down the other path, whichever one, right? I don't want you to go down the wrong path only to realize later on that it was the wrong one, because then if speed is your priority, now you have just set yourself way back even further. That's what I want you to avoid. So again, make sure you're considering all these different aspects and asking yourself, if you really want to build your app because you want all those benefits of the control, the speed, the flexibility, the convenience, that long-term speed, if you want all those benefits, but you need to launch by a certain time frame, right? Is outsourcing really going to be the faster approach? Think through this. Make sure that you're able to make the right decision for your app so you can move forward in the absolute best way possible, launch your app, and build that early traction. All right, I hope this was helpful for you. Now, if you are building your app yourself, and you want to make sure you're headed in the right direction, the most strategic direction forward, we have a free workshop you're welcome to join in on. If you head to coachingnocodeapps.com/workshop, you can sign up for it there. It'll take you through some of the strategic steps that we like to take when pulling that idea out of your head, that app idea out of your head, bringing it to life, using the right no-code tools, making sure that you're heading forward as efficiently and effectively as possible with your app. So you can head to coachingnocodeapps.com/workshop for that. All right, again, I hope that was helpful. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.